Formula One's visit to Azerbaijan was far from peaceful. Baku continues to be the one that got away for Charles Leclerc, as he was yet again unable to convert the pole to a victory. With an incredible race from Oscar Piastri and an unfortunate penultimate lap incident, McLaren are now charging ahead in the Constructors' Championship. Can McLaren create an even bigger gap at a track that isn't kind to Red Bull? We'll have to head to Singapore to find out. But the road out of Baku is at a standstill. So you might as well cool those brakes. Tune into the relaxing tones of Traffic Paradise Radio and chill with us for a while.
Nice paradise, like traffic paradise. What is this one?
Hello and welcome to Traffic Paradise Radio. I'm Uno, and joining me today are Kira.
Hello.
And Tay.
Hi.
How are you guys doing? Did you enjoy the race?
I loved it. So happy for Oscar. I know all of the Leclerc fans were suffering a bit. It was a very unfortunate race, but I'm so happy that Oscar got another win.
I'm doing well. I've had a little bit of time to recover from the stress of Baku. It was a very fun race, but I was on the edge of my seat from lap 1 all the way to the checkered flag. It was so stressful, but it was a great race.
So Tay, we haven't heard from you in a couple weeks, and there's a very big reason for that. Do you have some exciting news to tell everyone?
Yeah, actually, I have moved from my home in Australia to Japan. So I now live in Tokyo, and you might see some exciting content about a certain racetrack in Japan.
That's so exciting. So I'm assuming now you're no longer an Oscar Piastri Jack Doohan fan, but a Yuki Tsunoda fan, first and foremost. Surely, if you're living in Japan, you have to be.
I don't know, man. Those Australian roots are strong, but I will always be a Yuki fan.
Tay, that sounds awesome, and we look forward to hearing and seeing more of Japan. So, Baku, big race, lots of drama. To start the show off, let us name our candidates for Paradise and Purgatory of the week. Kira, shall we start with you? Who are you sending to Purgatory this week?
I think it's quite fair to say that I am sending Lance Stroll down to Purgatory. This weekend was absolutely atrocious for him. Firstly, he decided that he would take a walk into Yuki Tsunoda, getting rid of his side pod. Then he got a puncture, and then he retired from the race himself. I don't think you can really get much worse than that.
Absolutely. I completely agree with your choice there.
I definitely agree with sending Lance to Purgatory. The fact he said that Yuki closed the door on him didn't mean he needed to open a door in Yuki's side pod.
Thank you, Kira. Tay, would you like to share with us who you are sending to Purgatory this week?
I'm sending Williams to Purgatory. I know they ended up doing well in the race and scoring some much needed points, but I just can't get past the cooling fan incident from Q3. I think if Williams weren't so careless in leaving that fan, Alex could have set a better time and qualified higher. Also, Alex Albon just lost his streak of consecutively outqualifying his teammates, which he has had since the British Grand Prix in 2022, by the way. So that's why I'm sending Williams to Purgatory.
A very suitable candidate indeed. I think that the Williams incident with the fan was absolutely atrocious. To do that during qualifying, one could understand it in a free practice session. The stakes are not as high, but in qualifying, it's just such a shambles, really. It's not acceptable whatsoever.
You're so right, and it was so funny to me. You wouldn't see that from any team other than Williams. I love Williams as much as I can, but that was just so atrocious.
Okay, and my candidate for Purgatory is Sauber, because despite Yuki Tsunoda having a massive hole in his car, they weren't able to pass him in the beginning of the race. And with 4 DNFs, they weren't even able to get close to the points. Zhou Guanyu finished in P14, which, yeah, if it had been a race with no DNFs, we could say, well done to Sauber. They've made some improvements. But basically, P14 after 4 drivers have been eliminated is basically P18. So, like, what even is that? It's ridiculous. And I still feel so bad for Joe and for Bottas because they deserve so much better than that team is giving them. So, yeah, this week I'm sending Sauber to Purgatory.
Bottas, along with Esteban Ocon, was the only driver to get lapped in Baku, and Zhou was almost lapped as well. So they just don't seem to be able to keep up, even to people who have damage. And it's impossible to understand how a Formula One team can be behind by such a huge margin.
I 100% agree. It's just poor form from Sauber that they are so far behind, and I really don't see them catching up this season. I think we might see a team with 0 points at the end of the season.
Yeah, it's shameful. Honestly, it's shameful. With all that said, Lance Stroll, Williams, Sauber, you are sentenced to purgatory to atone for your sins on and off the track. May the gods of motorsport have mercy on your souls. Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
After sending those devilish candidates down to purgatory, it's time to uplift some candidates to paradise. So, Tay, who are you sending to paradise this week?
For me this week, it was hard to pick anyone but Oscar Piastri to send to paradise. Oscar showed such amazing driving skills lap after lap defending against Charles, and getting his second week, the week it was announced that he would act as a second driver to support Lando's championship, is just the cherry on top. So that's why I'm sending Oscar up to paradise.
No, he really did well this weekend. I was very impressed with his performance. And as you say, to keep Charles behind you for most of that race is, yeah, it's a brilliant performance from him. And he really sort of silenced the haters and the doubters. I think we've got a lot more to expect from him. Maybe not this season, but definitely next year.
It was nice to see that Oscar managed to make the very best of the situation with Lando obviously going out in Q1. Seeing that Papaya rules obviously went out of the window straight away, with Lando having an admirable race, still getting to P4, but there was no way he was going to catch up to Oscar. And I think, yeah, Oscar winning was definitely the best possible outcome in that situation, and he did so well.
And Kira, who are you sending to paradise this week?
I am saying to Paradise none other than Oliver Behrman. He has a 100% points finishes record in Formula One, and I think that's admirable. Yes, he's done 2 races, but he managed to score points in a Haas. Nico and Kevin struggled to do that every week. Ollie not only outqualified Nico, but he also managed to beat him in the race and was fighting with drivers like Lewis Hamilton and Franco Colapinto for most of the race, and it was an admirable drive from him, I think.
I agree. I think it just goes to show how much young talent is coming through the junior series, and Ollie is just outstanding, especially at Baku. But I'm excited to see what comes next for him.
Yeah, Behrman definitely did a very good job. I will say, when it comes to Nico in the race near the end, he got caught out a bit by the Checo Carlos incident. There was an issue of some sort that when he came around the corner, he had to avoid something and he lost a bit of pace and lost position because of that. But at the end of the day, it's his job as a driver to respond accordingly to those situations, and he didn't. So all props to Behrman. He did fantastic on only his second F1 debut. And as you say, to get points in a Haas is not the easiest thing in the world. So well done to him. Very good job. My candidate for Paradise is Sergio Checo Perez. I think he did a brilliant job this weekend. Up until the last few laps of Azerbaijan, he was at the top of his game. He outqualified Max, he outraced Max, and he outraced a lot of other drivers as well. There was a very unfortunate incident towards the end of the Grand Prix with Carlos, and unfortunately, that ended both their races. I kind of agree somewhat with the FIA when they say neither driver was 100% at fault. I think Carlos could have been more aware of where Checo was. Carlos had more than enough space on the other side of his car to avoid Checo, and Checo was obviously trying to overtake him, so was making sure he had as little room to maneuver as possible, but still gave him enough space. So I think it was just an unfortunate incident. But that aside, Checo really showed why he deserves that Red Bull seat and why he deserves his spot in Formula One this weekend. So yeah, Checo Perez, I'm very happy with what you did this weekend.
I really think we've seen a bit of a redemption arc from Checo since the summer break. He's had a series of good results, matched Max, even outqualified him in Baku, which is something we haven't seen from him this season since probably about China. I've never been a Red Bull fan, but I did honestly feel really bad for him when I saw that crash because he was so close to his first podium in a long time, and it was taken away from him. I'm not going to blame Sainz, not going to blame Perez, but it just happens. But yeah, I did feel bad. So he did a good job. He did a really good job.
Yeah, Checo was definitely back on form this weekend, and it really is unfortunate that his race ended the way it did. And it's also really unfortunate that that crash actually ruined Max's fastest lap attempt at the very end of the race, too. Checo was definitely performing better than we have seen recently.
And with that said, Ollie Behrman, Oscar Piastri, Sergio Perez, for pleasing the gods of motorsport, you are granted entrance into paradise. Ascend. Now, we have a couple more points from the weekend we wanted to talk about, starting with the big news that McLaren have overtaken Red Bull in the Constructors' Championships. It's a massive achievement for McLaren and something we haven't seen for a very long time.
It's definitely big news, and I think McLaren will just run away with the Constructors' Championships from here on. I'm not sure about the Drivers' Championship though, because I think Max's dominance at the beginning of the season was created a gap that was just too big for Lando to overcome. But the Constructors' Championship looks like it's McLaren's to lose from here on.
So, fun fact, the last time McLaren was leading the Constructors' Championship was at the Australian Grand Prix in 2014. So, it's been over 10 years since they've led the Constructors. So, honestly, it's crazy that they're back here now. In terms of the Drivers' Championship, Lando actually did end up taking points off of Verstappen in Baku because he finished a couple places ahead of him despite starting so far behind. There it is still all to play for, however, I do think that Max's gap is just slightly too big for Lando to reach in the few races we have left.
Yeah, the Drivers' Championship is looking less likely for Lando, but I also think that McLaren needs to watch out for Ferrari when it comes to that Constructors' title, because Ferrari's not that far away and they've been showing some tremendous form lately. As much as McLaren might be in the lead now, they got to maintain that consistency and they got to make sure that they don't have any mess ups because they can very easily lose that. If Red Bull have a resurgence or Ferrari start to dominate, that title is a lot less likely to be theirs. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the final few races because there's everything to play for from 3 teams in the running now for that championship, and it's very exciting. Another big story this week, Williams got their first double points of the season. Franco Colapinto got his first points in Formula One. Massive story for them, considering where they were just a few months ago.
Yeah, the development of Williams over the past few races has been astronomical. Their car is definitely fit to compete for the best of the rest now. And even getting just 2 cars into Q3 was a massive feat for them. And finishing P7 and P8 just means they're going to be a huge challenger for midfield teams.
And then finally, I thought it would be a good idea to discuss that Charles failed yet again to convert his Baku pole for a 4th year running. Unfortunately, he seems to have all of his luck on Saturday and loses a lot of it on Sunday. Now, he still did very well this weekend. I'm not going to pretend like had a bad race, but unfortunately, he seems to be a better, well, maybe it's not him. Let's say this. The Ferrari seems to be better on Saturday than it is on Sunday. And that's going to be a problem for them if they do hope to challenge McLaren for that World Constructors title. And it maybe leaves some doubts about their ability to challenge for both titles next year.
Yeah, points are won on Sunday, aren't they? Qualifying first doesn't mean anything if you can't convert that to a win. And the Ferrari car just looks like it's faster over one lap, but it has no race pace. I really thought this was the year that Charles would break his curses, but it looks like we'll have to wait another year to see if he can break the Baku curse.
Yeah, Charles seems to have the worst luck, hey? I don't know what it is about him. He must have done something. I don't know how many mirrors he broke as a child or how many ladders he walked under, but like really, he really should have thought ahead about those sorts of things because that man's bad luck is crazy sometimes. And from Charles Leclerc's bad luck, let's have a look at our own luck. Tay, last week, what did you predict would happen at Baku?
I predicted that P1 would be Lando Norris, P2 Oscar Piastri, P3 George Russell, and my wild card was that there would be two safety cars. And ultimately, I got my P3 George Russell right, which was surprising when I was watching the race, actually. And I regret switching Norris and Piastri. I switched them last minute and I regret it so much. It cost me so many points. But I'll just have to get some more in Singapore.
Yeah, that Russell P3 was a very lucky last minute reward for you because that was not looking likely at all until the last two laps of the race. So you were very lucky there, and congrats on your 1 point. For myself, I predicted Norris in P1, Leclerc in P2, and Piastri in P3, with my wildcard prediction being a red flag in qualifying. Unfortunately, I only got Leclerc right, but it does mean I get 3 points. And I just want to add that I think the Albon Williams funny fan being left on the car thing during qualifying should have resulted in a red flag because his car was stationary on track and they should have red flagged the session and restarted it once he had solved the issue. And then I would have had my extra point. So I'm very angry with the stewards for not helping me out in that situation. It seems like we've lost Kira, who hopefully will be able to get back. But I just want to explain what her predictions were. She predicted that Norris would win, Leclerc would come P2, and Hamilton would come P3. She got the order of teams correct, McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes, but unfortunately, the only driver she got correct was Leclerc. And her wildcard prediction was that Ollie would finish in the points. And I very much doubted that prediction, but I was proven wrong, and Kira was proven right. So, congratulations to Kira. She got herself 4 points.
Yippee for Kira!
Woohoo! And finally, Immy, who couldn't join us to record today, but did make predictions last week, said that Leclerc would come P1, Sainz would come P2, and Piastri would come P3, and that there would be two safety cars. She predicted the same thing as you, Tay. Unfortunately, she came out with 0 points this week, but I don't think she'll mind too much because she's a big Piastri fan and he ended up winning the whole thing. I'm sure 0 points, but a Piastri win. Immy's probably happier than all of us.
Yeah, I think the reason Immy's not here today is because she's still celebrating that Piastri win. And it's so disappointing that we both predicted two safety cars and we were both wrong.
Honestly, I'm so surprised by that because with all the red flags in free practice, I was so sure that this was going to be like a weekend of carnage. And yeah, we kind of got that in the final few laps, but I really predicted it would be a lot worse. But yeah, I guess we should have maybe just toned it down a bit. If you had said one safety car, you would have been fine. So with that, let's have a final look at how this has changed the leaderboard. Kira is sitting on 11 points. Uno is sitting on 6 points. Immy is sitting on 5 points. And Tay is sitting on 4 points. So, congratulations to Kira, who's got an amazing lead. And congratulations to me, who jumped up to second place in the standings. Woohoo!
Yay! Oh gosh, I'm very glad to still be ahead. Honestly, I just throw together random predictions for most races. A lot of mine don't have much basis, so I've gotten very lucky, and I'm very surprised that I'm ahead.
And Tay, unfortunately, you are last.
Yeah, right at the bottom of the barrel. It's disappointing, but you're about to see the greatest comeback you've ever seen. I'm going to be top of the ladder next week. Just you see. Just you wait and see.
Ooh. Fighting words from Tay. Guess we'll have to tune in to the Singapore predictions video to see what Tay has to say. And let's see if her game is as good as her. I don't know what the rest of that saying usually is, but anyway.
Is it if your bite is as good as her bark? Like,
It's, maybe, yeah,
That is it.
maybe. She can talk the talk, but can she walk the walk? I don't know. All those things are so stupid anyway. I hate them.
yeah.
Okay, it's fine. That's all we have for today. Thank you for tuning in to Traffic Paradise Radio. It looks like the road heading out of Baku is finally clear, so enjoy the rest of your day. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to follow us if you are listening on Spotify, or like and subscribe if you are watching us on YouTube. Bye-bye.
Bye!
Bye bye.
Okay, Kira, are you there?
Hello, Kira.
Kira?
Come back to us, please.
Come back! Kira, come back!